am Jennifer Igwe. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Environment Matters. Extreme weather events have been hitting communities and states in Nigeria almost simultaneously. We've had intense rainfall causing massive flooding, rivers busting their banks, dam failure, and other extreme cases. All these have caused loss of lives, livelihoods, property, farmlands, and investments. Beyond the disaster, like when we have the devastation, is the recovery process and other challenges associated with it. Health is a crucial part of this. Today on Environment Matters, we'll be looking at the link between disaster and health, how people are coping, and why we all need to come on board. So stay tuned. Heat waves have given many a taste of what living in an oven can be like. Repeatedly, we have seen the power of stubborn wildfire and the ferocity of its rage. Intense rainfall and flooding have swept and washed away communities living behind polluted water high enough to drown residents while keeping them thirsty. These hazards and disasters amplify the fact that climate change is aggravating effects of weather events, causing cries and crises at alarming rates. Series of events in year 2024 alone in Nigeria have crippled communities. As floodwaters recede, the implication of the devastation becomes more evident. From financial losses, ruined communities, ensuring health challenges, and more.
Stagnant water will contaminate the normal surface water, which could otherwise have been can be converted very easily to potable water just by normal processes of disinfection. But when the flood gets into this normal surface water we use, then you can have a very high contamination. Now, you know that most of our deaths on the farms is caused by diarrheal diseases. So this is a major problem because these diarrheal diseases, not just cholera, but other diarrheal diseases, amoebiasis, giardiasis, all these diseases will proliferate. They will increase in incidence. So we will have an exaggerated number of deaths from these diarrheal diseases. So the flood is actually directly responsible for higher incidence of vector-borne diseases, diarrhea disease, which will give us a spike in infant and child mortality. So we should expect as a consequence that we will have a spike in these diseases. And that's why we have to take precautionary measures for this.
With the increasing frequency of extreme weather events linked to climate change, experts are emphasizing the need for early warning systems that include adaptive strategies and pragmatic public health preparedness.
A veterinarian could actually help in preventing the number of bites and, of course, hopefully, the incidence of outbreak of malaria. And the other thing is, in our society, we might have to move people as soon as possible to higher land because people get this warning from the Nigerian Meteorological Organization, and sometimes they don't heed to it and they don't take it seriously. So when these flooding alerts are there, it's necessary to move if the instruction is that people should move to higher areas, then that should be done in a very organized way. And the fact that people want to stay back in their usual environment to protect their assets, but you can't protect your assets when or your house or your home and everywhere else when there is a massive flood. So what you need to do is to save your life. So moving to places where you have high ground is very, very important, and doing that very early, not when the flood is already there, because the logistical um, impediments to movement when there's a large amount of flood is very, very difficult. And we need to even improve the dissemination of information around this, when there is this extreme weather event. The warnings given by the Meteorological Organization has to be re-echoed by uh, individuals, by organizations. It has to be in churches, in mosques. These warnings have to be repeated over and over so that people will heed to them as early as possible. There is also the issue of using preventive care. Preventive malaria medication can be very, very helpful. As far as the waterborne disease, the only most important thing is to get them potable water. Using the flood water for washing your clothes, taking your bath, is not advisable because the flood water itself is contaminated with sewage. In Nigeria, we don't have a central sewage system. What we have are septic tanks built by the side of the home. When there is a flood, all the feces in this septic tank comes up and enters into the water. So it's all around you. So what actually you are doing is using contaminated water for washing, for taking your bath, washing your clothes. You're actually contaminating yourself from coming in contact with sewage. So which is not advisable at all. That happened in the past, which has actually led to a lot of problems, is that the planning by government uh, is only for public uh, health institutions. And these are very few, not widespread. So this network should be integrated. The hospitals, the laboratories, the community pharmacies, all these private networks should be integrated. Basically, most importantly for disaster management.
Studies by the World Health Organization shows that climate change could result in approximately 250,000 additional deaths per year between 2030 and 2050 as a result of factors like undernutrition, malaria, diarrhea, and heat stress alone. This is still Environment Matters. Time for us to go to Maiduguri. We have been following up on the flood disaster there. So it is not just about covering the devastation on the day of the disaster, but the crucial part is also the recovery process. And Elizabeth Abdulmalik will help us understand how the people are faring the challenge with health and sanitation, including cholera.
Every rainy season brings the threat of waterborne diseases, particularly cholera, which thrives in poor sanitary conditions, and health officials in Borno State have been on high alert. Cholera is not new to Borno State, but the recent flood disaster has significantly increased the state's vulnerability as the city is now facing a new crisis of cholera outbreak. During a visit to Milonia quarters in Maiduguri, one of the areas hit by the flood, NTA observed that the situation remains dire, as amidst the health risks, large sections of the community is still waterlogged a month after the disaster.
You can see behind me the places that see submerged water. Speaking with people of this area, they said every household in this place, their toilets are broken.
Yours sincerely walked through the flooded water to access Hawa Muhammad Audu, a mother of 5 whose residence was severely impacted by the flood with broken toilets and septic tank, exacerbating the unhygienic conditions.
Muna cikin ruwanmu bai fita ba, gefen garu ya rushe mana, muna da yara kanana, muna zama ga sauro ga abin nan, muna cikin wahala.
Our houses are still flooded and our toilets are broken. When the children want to defecate, we dig a small hole for them, and sometimes even us we do the same. We need government's intervention.
Other residents equally shared similar concerns, afraid that cholera and other diseases could easily spread and infest them.
Mai girma gwamna ya duba yanayin tosai, ba ma da kwalbati shi yasa ruwa ya cinye mu, gaban gidanmu duk sun yi condemn gabaki daya. Mutane masu
Our governor should look into this, because if the committee come, they will say our houses are still flooded and go without attending to any house. All the toilets in this settlement are broken and we are afraid of cholera.
Meanwhile, Borno State Commissioner for Health, Professor Baba Malagana, confirmed 17 cases of cholera outbreak with no fatalities, attributing the minimal number of cases to the proactive measures taken by the government at all levels and humanitarian agencies. According to him, the government had secured 300,000 doses of oral cholera vaccine, OCV, with 96% of the doses already administered, thereby containing the situation than in previous years where several lives were lost and thousands affected.
I'm very grateful to many of my colleagues here who had to cross waters and difficult terrains to reach out to some communities who needed the vaccination.
To bolster this effort, the federal government has sent an additional 600,000 vaccine doses to the state, targeting communities most affected by the flood, where the risk of cholera is highest.
The number that you mentioned, 17, is cultured positive. The ones that the result has been cultured. If not, the cases, that is the suspected cases, they are more than 1,000. We have 151 cases. Among these ones, they are RDT positive and they were culture positive. But even the suspect had been treated well for cholera, even before the results comes out.
Dr. Noor Abubakar Mustafa, a physician at the State Specialist Hospital in Maiduguri, weighed in on the ongoing outbreak, emphasizing that the key to containing cholera lies in swift preventive measures and heightened public awareness.
It's a waterborne disease that is caused by a microorganism, otherwise known as Vibrio cholerae. And how it infects is when the individual ingests the microorganism, and it is the toxins that will cause a kind of an acute diarrheal disease, which normally affects children, pediatric age group. However, it can affect adults, and it causes mostly dehydration and loss of water in the body. Most of these waterborne diseases are fecal-oral. What I mean by fecal-oral is when you defecate and then you use that same thing and then ingest into your body. So if there is unsafe treatment of that water, that will now lead to the transmission of this kind of diseases. And because of the presence of a lot of dirt and a lot of microorganisms and a lot of plants that the flood will now carry along, dead tissues and dead body. It will now form a kind of a nutrient for this microorganism to thrive. So if it thrives, it will now start being transmitted from one person to the other. Some people will have less effect to the microorganism because the person that is taking the water is someone that is actually well built, well nourished, as compared to someone that is already in a low resource economy background, who is already malnourished and is prone to a lot of diseases. We need actually to put laws in place and then also educate the people. Educating the people about how to maintain their hands after they defecate, how to wash hands, how to use or how to make a clean potable water for someone which is going to be safe for drinking. These are very important steps that will actually reduce the transmission of this disease. Not even giving the patient medication or rehydrating the patient. If you are able to prevent how the transmission will take place, you will now break the chain, which will now stop the spread of this disease. And provide, that's why I said government needs to come in. So when government comes in, they will give laws and they are going to give some orders where potable water will be present, and they are going to assign some sewage, a temporary sewage system will be made, and water will be provided, which will now help. And they will teach the people how to wash hand. Washing hand is very important in actually retarding or breaking the transmission of this disease.
Despite the grim situation, many in Maiduguri are showing resilience, with local volunteers teamed up with public health workers to distribute water purification tablets and raise awareness about hygiene practices. Health experts urge the public to remain cautious and proactive, avail themselves of vaccination campaigns, ensuring the disease is well managed in their communities.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Now to Lagos. The release of water from the Oyo Dam in Ogun State, the impact of that release is often aggravated by intense rainfall in the rainy season. And those who live along the bank of the Ogun River that flows from Ogun into Lagos do not have good stories to tell during this period, and it happens every year. So many of them right now are trying to relocate because they don't want to experience many of the harrowing tales, often the case when the water is released during this period. Michael Olaleye visited one of the communities and will share the experience and how they are coping.
The worst nightmare dreaded by this community known as Maidorile Patile in my 12th area of Lagos is here, with water level rising every second. Some weeks ago, the riverbank was a makeshift jetty offering shelter for those waiting for the next boat. But that space has been taken over by water as residents now depend on an elevation to board. Accessing internal roads is no longer a luxury, and for those who have been living here for years, the bigger fear is on the way.
Big one is coming, that we move, everybody will move, nobody will stay here. Both small children, they cannot enter water, we go and use boat to carry them. Their mother will wear short knicker, they will carry their children on shoulder to move inside the water.
When the flood comes in, it gets to my chest. So it gets to my chest. So imagine what that and the hazard that we do to a student or a young child if it enters such river.
My Donrile Patili captures the experience of most of the communities along the bank of River Ogun. And at this time of the year, relocating could offer a ready-made option, but not all residents have a destination in mind. Zainab Quadri, a nursing mother, knows her next destination, and it will definitely be the same like previous years.
I used to go to my mommy place at Majidun. Whenever my husband would find a way, maybe in their office. So when the water is getting to some stages that we can't cope again, even with the canoe, we can't face the water. The water will be shaking the canoe.
Just like Zainab, all the houses and business ventures in the most affected areas of the community have left. And this is not an indication that the community lacks resilience to adaptation. In fact, there are water breakers built at strategic locations to minimize impacts.
We have 12 CDAs in this community, so that tells you that everybody living in this community comes through this way out to the community. So we have just 2 canoes moving people. It becomes a rush hour, so we have a lot of people who are rushing to work. They come here 6 o'clock, and before they move out of the community, it takes them over an hour.
Despite this, the fear permeating the atmosphere here revolves around uncertainty, as the memory of a mishap that happened in 1999 is still fresh in the minds of the people.
In the year 1999, many people died in this water, and about 12 members of my church died there, and it used to happen every year.
We experience most of the animal that comes with the water, and sometimes it enters our various homes, our houses. Sometimes we battle with them. Mostly there is the one that used to move like a guinea pig, something like that. And once it enters someone's leg, you will start draining the blood, latches, body latches, and cholera and the rest of them, because of the waste and other things that people throw inside. So when the water comes, it brings those things out, and people put their leg, and before you know it, they start vomiting, start stooling and other things. And most of times we lose some people as the result of that.
There are some associations that have been coming to the community to either give them injection, give them drug, give them test of their blood and other things like that. So but the major thing is for the government to come to our aid and to build the bridge, the motorable bridge.
The challenges are enormous, and stakeholders say finding lasting solutions to the plight of communities along the riverbank could be the needed antidote in place of relocating.
Up to 75% of human infectious diseases originates in animals. And as more bushmeat is brought into our cities, the risk of human infectious disease outbreaks increases. Ebola, monkeypox, Lassa fever, yellow fever, and even COVID-19 may have been transmitted in this way. Illegal bushmeat trade not only endangers our wildlife, but affects our health and may damage our economy. So please, say no to illegal bushmeat. Keep them wild and keep us safe.
I don't want to end up sounding like a broken record, but I have to emphasize this point, that we need to be more strategic in our approach to disaster prevention, management, and recovery process, not just for Maiduguri, but all across Nigeria. So until next week, when another episode of Environment Matters comes your way, I am Jennifer Igwe. Keep being environment friendly and stay green.